Hey, my name is Jasmine. I currently study and work in wildlife biology, and in today's video, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Normally, I like to react to people who talk about things related to biology or wildlife. Instead, we're going to be testing someone. Well, actually, not someone, something. You'll be testing Google, and if you're looking at my tabs, you may notice one of them is labeled Common Climate Change Questions. Sorry, I lost my mouse. Anyway, we're going to be taking Google's AI overview and seeing just how good or bad of a job it's doing. Now, here I feel the need to point out that no, I'm not in any way sponsored by Google. Fuck Google. Fuck you. However, I figured it could be entertaining to see, okay, what does it get right? What does it get wrong? How does it do? And then also see how hard it is to believe that people still get confused about climate change because Google is free. I have my long list of forms with Google, but it is free and easily accessible. However, let's go down the list that it has provided and see what it got right and what it got wrong. Honestly, I might actually use this as a paper idea in the future if I need to write another paper. Anyway, AI overview. Common questions about climate change include: is it real? What's the difference between global warming and climate change? And how do we know humans are causing it? What are the impacts and what can we do about it? Okay. Those are all questions I feel like I've heard pretty regularly, often voiced in Facebook comment sections. But let's take a look at it. So, first off, is climate change real? The scientific consensus is that climate change is real and largely caused by human activities, according to the United States Environmental Protection Agency. Okay. Gotta say, pretty useful. Accurate, not very biased in any way. Scientific consensus, which is what the scientific consensus is, it's factually accurate, and it cites a reputable source, relatively reputable source, for data. So, honestly, as a research tool, first one, 10 out of 10. Good job. I did not think I'd actually be applauding Google's AI overview, but here we are. Let's move on to the second one. What is the difference between global warming and climate change? Global warming refers specifically to the increase in Earth's average temperature, while climate change encompasses broader changes in weather patterns, including temperature, precipitation, and sea levels, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.gov. Okay, again, factually accurate, links to a reasonable source. They could add more detail, but compared to the last one, it's already longer, so honestly, gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Not perfect, pretty good though. They could point out some of the types of changes, such as so temperature, precipitation. They could include things like how it increases dramatic weather events like severe tornadoes. Severe cold is actually a symptom of climate change. Most people don't realize. They'll say, "Oh, climate change isn't real. There's severe cold." No, that's a sign of it. Yeah. So anyway, moving on to the next one. How do you know humans are causing it? Another good question, because reality is most people. It's very rare to find somebody who will actually deny climate change, but people will say it's just humans are not causing it. So, a fair question and a reasonable one to ask in this circumstance. So let's see what they say. Scientific evidence, including data from climate models and observations of greenhouse gas concentrations, indicates a strong link between human activities like burning fossil fuels and warming trend, according to the Met Office. Not sure what the Met Office is, so I'm not going to say if it's a good source or not. But still, relative seems to be using factual and accurate information, and to be relatively correct. Again, it's an overview, so take everything you see with a grain of salt. However, due to lack of a easily accessible source, because even if the source is there, it's still not a link they can easily click on, and people are lazy. Like it or not, humans are a very lazy species. So I'm going to give it we'll go with 5 out of 10. Could be better, middle of the ground, not bad. What are the impacts? Oh, never mind. You think I should have read this before doing the video, but no, I'm fucking stupid. Anyway, what are the impacts? Climate change is projected to cause a range of impacts, including rising sea levels, more extreme weather events like heat waves and floods, changes in ecosystems, and impacts on human health, says the Climate Reality Project. Yes, all accurate, although there are some things that they aren't talking about. One thing that I find very fascinating that I've actually recently covered in in my ornithology class is the escalator to extinction, as my professor called it, which is very fascinating, which is as temperatures get warmer, if you look at mountains, there's actually seems to be a relatively high degree of, on these certain mountains, of stratification between bird species, where certain species have like, okay, I live at this elevation, and then another at the elevation below that, and so on and so forth. They found their niche. A lot of them have evolved there for a long period of time, so have gotten very used to the temperatures. And as such, as the temperatures warm, they are slowly moving up the mountain. Now, I'm not sure if you ever looked at a mountain, but they're usually pretty well cone-shaped, meaning that if you start here and you go up to here, then when here moves up here, the one that was that was already here and that's moved up, there's nowhere for them to go. Additionally, there's just less area, so their population has to decrease to sustain itself. So basically, birds are forced to higher and higher elevations until there's no more elevation. Extinction. So yeah, that's a fun one. Okay. The final one, I feel like this is the one that I'm gonna have problems with, but we'll take a look at it. Actions to reduce greenhouse gas, or what can we do about it? Actions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, like transitioning to renewable energy sources, improving energy efficiency, and making sustainable choices are crucial to maintaining climate change, according to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency.gov. Should have linked it, but it's AI. What the fuck do you expect? Honestly, I have my qualms with this, and even with the EPA just for saying it, because yes, humans do or the average person does impact climate change, especially through things like single-use plastics and shit. However, large corporations, if every person on the planet became carbon neutral, just stop producing carbon flat out, like, stop fucking breathing even. If I remember correctly, and please don't quote me on this, but somewhere around 1/3 or 2/3, I don't remember if it's 1 or 2/3, but just to be safe, we're going with 1/3. 1/3 of carbon emissions would continue because they are produced by average citizens or civilians. They're produced by corporations. And while I will say I am very much a left-leaning libertarian, I suppose is the correct term if you want to be fucking academic about it, that it is the role of government is not to do everything. The role of government is to do that which the average citizen cannot. That is it. Anything beyond that is government overreach and is a problem. However, controlling corporations, if we're not going to allow unionization, should be done by the government. I would much rather, instead of the government doing it, a group of the people who work there, who know about the field, control it instead, but that's not the case. So I will say, it's not all our fault. As a matter of fact, a lot of that has been pushed by a lot of groups which push that, hey, it's all your fault, you need to fix it. If you follow their funding, they get funded by organizations that are dumping mass amounts of plastic into the ocean. For example, let's take a car assembled in the United States. However, half the parts are assembled in China. They're then shipped across, further assembled, but not finished, shipped back, assembled further, shipped back, put into a car, sold. The problem is every time it went back and forth, it was wrapped in 3 layers of fucking single-use cellophane plastic. So yeah, anyway, that's a whole nother tirade, but honestly, I gotta say, relatively speaking, as far as a layman's source, not bad. It's not Google Scholar, it never will be, but not bad. I feel like they could probably improve, but I cannot say how to improve, so I'm not going to critique it that heavily. However, seeing as I'm novel to this, I've never dive deeper in AI mode, so may the gods have mercy upon my soul on my computer. What will this do? There we go. Oh god. What is this? Okay. Never used this before. New experience for both of us. Okay, common climate change questions, basic concepts. Was climate change refers to long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns primarily driven by human activity since the 1800s. Yeah, that's pretty accurate. What is the difference between climate and weather? Weather describes short-term atmospheric conditions in a specific location, whereas long-term weather conditions patterns average over decades or longer. That's pretty accurate. What is the difference between global warming and climate change? Global warming specifically refers to, okay, so it looks like we already looked at this. Yep, okay, cool. What is the greenhouse effect? Greenhouse effect is a natural process where certain gases in Earth's atmosphere trap heat, keeping the planet warm enough to support life. Human activities, primarily burning fossil fuels, have enhanced this effect, leading to increased global temperatures. Okay, how do we know humans are causing climate change? Since the 50s, due to emissions of greenhouse gas from activities like burning fossil fuels, deforestation, and industrial processes. Do scientists agree on climate change? There is strong scientific consensus that human activities are the primary driver of climate change, with the vast majority actively publishing agreeing. Yes. I also feel the need to point out here that somebody will say, oh, well, there's scientists that disagree. There are scientists that disagree with everything. I would say a scientist who vehemently disagreed with climate change. I will say all of his arguments can be debunked by this. like in order actually. Um, the order that he used them could be debunked by this in the exact same order as presented. It's kind of funny, like thinking back. But also, yes, he's a scientist, and yes, he disagrees with climate change. However, he is a fisheries biologist. He primarily studied how to more effective, from all of the time I spent talking to him, all of his expertise is figuring out how to produce more, how to make fisheries more productive. Very helpful, very important for science, very important for humanity, for food systems. However, not a climate expert. I'm also not a climate expert, so just in case it wasn't obvious, wildlife biology, not actually my specialty. I have a bit greater knowledge because wildlife biology and ecology, and climate change significantly impacts ecosystems. But point being, yes, you can find people that disagree with it. 9 times out of 10, they aren't experts. Just saying. Anyway, are natural variations in climate contributing to current climate change? While natural factors like solar activity and volcanic eruptions can influence climate change, they are not the primary drivers of the current warming trend. Those factors either do not explain the rapid change being observed or are going in the opposite direction. This is pretty accurate. I will see people say, yes, well, volcanoes dump tons. Yes, and one volcano dumps tons. So does multiple countries. So that's multiple volcanoes. As well as many mass extinctions were predated by significant long-lasting volcanic eruptions, which are equivalented by what we humans are doing for production. That's not good. Anyway, okay, moving on. What are the main sources of greenhouse gas emissions? Primary use of greenhouse gas is burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas for energy production, transportation, industry, heating, deforestation, agriculture, and certain industrial processes are also significant sources. Yeah, pretty accurate. Okay. Although I will admit, I don't love the blaming agriculture for everything. A lot of people seem to do, maybe just because it's easy, because there's not a lot of people in ag. But agriculture is actually needed and is a pretty justifiable producer of greenhouse emissions. Because as it turns out, yes, creating it will put emissions in the air, but as it turns out, plants have this lovely habit of sequestering CO2. So they at least help offset it to some degree. And also is vital to the continuation of our existence as a species. Anyway, my little dolt about agriculture because I grew up in ag. So I will say I am biased, so feel free to tell me to fuck off. I deserve it. Anyway, impacts and solutions. Why is climate change a serious problem? Climate change threatens ecosystems, human health, economies, and societies worldwide, leading to increased extreme weather events, sea level rise, food and water insecurity. Good thing to note and add. And potential displacement of populations. Yes, that is also a concern. Not just human populations, as well as animal populations. How does climate change affect human health? Climate change can impact human health through various pathways, including heat-related illness, respiratory problems from air pollution, increased spread of infectious diseases, and disruptions of food and water supplies. Yeah, I will say somebody who's had the displeasure of choking on smoke, both coal and from burning grasses, shit sucks. You appreciate cleaner after doing such things. Anyway, what can we do to reduce the risks of climate change? Addressing climate change requires a combination of actions to both reduce greenhouse gas emissions, mitigation, and adapt the impacts of climate change. Yeah, we can, but I'd also like to keep our planet and most of our species around. I'd rather not be the cause of another mass extinction. Just me personally, my bias there. I like animals. I think they're cool. I want to keep them around. Less death, less extinction, better. Death is always a thing, but at least less extinction. Anyway, your strategies include transitioning to renewable energy, improving energy efficiency, and reducing deforestation. Adaptation measures involve preparing for and managing the consequences of climate change, such as developing drought-resistant crops or enhancing coastal defenses. Is it too late to prevent climate change? Well, some changes in the climate are already unavoidable due to past emissions. It is not too late to take action to limit the extent to future warming and prevent worse impacts of climate change. Okay. I mean, I'm going to give it a solid 6 out of 10. Not great, not horrible, could be better, could be worse. I give it a meh. For the average layman, perfectly passable. Because reality is, I'm not a climate scientist, and there's not enough of scientists generally to answer everybody's questions. Personally, at least. I mean, it's just the way it is. So, yeah, I don't love it. I don't hate it. Yeah, 7 out of 10. 6 out of 10. Yeah, that's what I'm going to give it. Could be better, could be worse. If you have any further questions about climate change, especially if they relate to animals, feel free to comment them down below. If there's anything you believe I got wrong, please comment it down below. I love being proven wrong. Yeah. So, yeah, if you have any questions, if you'd like me to talk more about this, science, anything really, I'm always open to ideas. I'm getting to the point where I'm about to start reading essays that I've written previously for classes, for videos, which also might go well, I'm not really sure. Anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Hopefully you found this some way entertaining or educational. Have a lovely day, I guess. Bye. Stop recording. Stop recording, please. Thank you.